All right, so let's discuss types of sponsorships and how they might be evaluated in terms of goals and objectives. Now, when we design sports sponsorship programs, there are different kinds of sponsorship types. Some of those might include things like individual athletes, teams, venues, the league, maybe the sport itself, or official sponsor of the NFL football, or specific events, or perhaps the cause. For instance, the PGA Tour event here in Las Vegas is the Shriners Children's Hospital Open, and as a result, some people would like to become sponsors for that event because they believe in the cause of Shriners Children's Hospital, and so they support the event and they support the cause, and as a result, they're more than willing then to become a sponsor. In terms of sponsorship objectives, you need to pitch a sponsorship in terms of what the potential customer is using to justify the purchase of a sponsorship. And there might be short-term and long-term objectives. Some of the typical objectives would be awareness. So think about Allegiant and Allegiant buying the naming rights, sponsorship naming rights for the building in which the Raiders will play. Well, you can maybe make the argument that it's all about awareness, in which case then we want to talk about total number of views and exposures. You might want to talk about potential sales. Typically, it's hard to tie sponsorships directly back to sales, but in some cases it can be done. Competitive use, that is, maybe we do this because all of our competitors have done this. Think about airlines, and think about the Delta Center in Salt Lake City, the United Center in Chicago, and of course here we have the Allegiant Stadium. And so a number of airlines have already done this sort of thing, and so this is probably a good reason for Allegiant to want to do that, to try to create some sort of competitive parity with their peers. Another might be perceived quality and image building, which is all part of building brand equity. Maybe you want to reach a particular target market that is a market that is in fact closely affiliated with that sport. Some relationship building, maybe with your best customers, might be what you're all about. Or maybe building a positive associations, another attempt to help build brand equity. So all of these are potential objectives, and there might be others also. In terms of budgeting and pricing, sponsorship sellers should try to make it nearly impossible to unbundle and evaluate the proposal in terms of number of exposures, reach, etc. The whole point here is create a bundle scenario where it is not going to be easy to figure out how much each piece is worth. Seldom will you be able to sell a sponsorship on the marketing value of the sponsorship alone. And that's not always going to be the case, but in most cases, you need to find potential customers who are already positively predisposed to the team or the sport or the league or the venue or something. I have a friend of mine who sells sports sponsorships for UNLV athletics, and his argument is you can go in and almost immediately find out whether or not you're going to be successful. If the person wants to talk about the metrics and wants to talk about the offer as a business proposition, then your chances of selling a sponsorship to that person is not very high. On the other hand, if the person wants to talk about the team and the prospects and the new coach and the schedule this year and the move to the new stadium and all those sorts of things, then your chances of selling a sponsorship go up dramatically. So you need to identify potential buyers that are predisposed to the team, the sport, and the individual athletes. If the client only wants to talk about exposures, you'll be less likely to close those deals. And then we have the evaluation of sports sponsorships effectiveness. So at the end of the situation, at the end of the sponsorship deal, the sponsors are going to want to know whether or not they successfully reached the goals and objectives that they had talked about when they purchased the sponsorship. So you really want to focus on those goals and objectives. And so if the goals and objectives were build awareness, then we should have some awareness metrics and analytics to show them. But blurring the results with a combination of both analytics and qualitative concepts is not at all bad. And I think that that potentially is the way that we would prefer to demonstrate the successfulness of the sponsorship.